So in this lesson, we're going to be learning how to sketch the sine function and the cosine function. The sine function is defined by the equation y is equal to a sine bx, where a represents the amplitude. Amplitude is equal to, we're going to take the absolute value of a, meaning that even if a is negative, for amplitude you must put it as a positive. So, and we're going to need the period of the graph. For period of the sine function, we know that generally it's 360 degrees, but we're going to divide that by b. And then we also must have the interval. Interval must be the period divided by 4. And then the sine function, the general sine function of y is equal to sine x. You have the amplitude as a 1, you have the period as a 360 degrees, and you have the interval as 360 divided by 4. That's going to give you a 90 degrees. So to sketch the function, you are going to have the divisions 90, you have 180, and you have your 270, then you have your 360, which is the complete period. And then you must also put down your amplitude, which is just going to be a 1 and a -1. So the sine function starts from the 0 level going up, and then we have a turning point at 90. Here we have a root, and then at 180 we have a root. At 270 we go to -1 as a turning point, and then we go back to a root. Joining our points, our sine function is just going to be like this. This is the general sine function. Moving on, let us try another example. Suppose they say go ahead and sketch the function of 2 sine 3x. 2 sine 3x. The amplitude is just going to be 2. Then the period is going to be 360 divided by a 2. That's a 3. Then this is going to give you 360 divided by 3. What's your math saying over there? 360 divided by 3, that's 120. So the period is 120 degrees. Then the interval is going to be 120 divided by a 4, which is going to give us a 30 degrees. So to sketch the function, we're going to have our amplitude first, which is a 2 minus 2, and then we're going to have our interval of 30 plus 30, that's a 60, plus 30, that's a 90, plus 30, that's going to give us 120. And then now you know that the sine function is going to start at the origin, and then it has a turning point, a root, it has a turning point, it has a root. And then sketching the function, must have a neat function. It's going to be just like this. So this is the graph of 2 sine 3x. So should it happen that we are now asked to sketch the graph of y is equal to negative sine x. Remember that I said for amplitude, you're taking the absolute value, meaning the amplitude must always be positive. So here we have -1 as our value of a, then that's going to be a 1. And then our period is just going to be 360 degrees, and our interval is going to be 90 degrees. So take note of this. Now you are having your graph with a negative, meaning you are reflecting it about the x-axis. So instead of your graph going up first, it's going to go down first. So your interval 270 and 360. So sketching this function, it's going to be the root first, and then we go down, we go to the root, we go up, and then we come back to a root. Then we connect our points, and it's going to give us this function. So this is our graph of y is equal to negative sine x. Should it happen that we are asked to sketch the graph of y is equal to -2 sine half x, our amplitude is going to be the absolute value of a, which is just a 2, and then our period is 360 degrees divided by a half. That's 360 degrees multiplied by a 2, which is going to give us a 720 degrees. And then our interval is going to be 720 degrees divided by 4, which just gives us 180 degrees. So when we sketch our function, we're going to have our amplitude is 2, then we're going to have a -2, then we have the interval of 180 degrees plus 180, that's a 360, plus 180, that's a 540, plus 180, that's a 720. And then we are going to sketch our function, noting that we have a -a. So we start from the origin. From the origin, we are going down to a turning point, to a root, a turning point, to a root again. So connecting the points, we're just going to have a function beautiful as this one. So this is the graph of negative sine half x. And now moving on to the graph of cosine. The cosine function, you have the same as y is equal to a cos bx, whereby a represent the amplitude. The amplitude, let me say the amplitude is represented by the absolute value of a, and the period is going to be 360 degrees divided by b, and then the interval is going to be period divided by a 4. So to sketch the function, you must have your amplitude, for y is equal to cos x. Must have graph as this. You have your amplitude as 1, and then you are having your period as 90. You have a period as 360. Then you divide the period by 4 to get the interval. So we're going to have our 90, 180, 270. So here the cosine function starts at 1. So meaning that the cosine of 0, is going to be 1. The cosine of 90 is going to be 0. The cosine of 180 is a -1. Cosine of 270 is a 0. Cosine of 360 is a +1. So connecting the points, we're going to end up with a graph such as this. So this is the general function of y is equal to cos of x. So it happened that you're asked to draw the graph of y is equal to minus cos 2x. We are going to have our amplitude being equal to 1. The period is equal to 360 divided by 2, which is 180. And then our interval is going to be 180 divided by a 4, which is going to give us a 45. So to sketch our function, now we know that our cosine function is reflected about the x-axis. So here we are going to have our cosine function starting at a -1 instead of a +1, and our interval is 45. We have 45, we have 90, have 135, and then we're going to have 180. So here, sketching the function, we're going to have our first point, our turning point at -1. We have our root at 45, a turning point at +1. We have a root at 135, and then we have a turning point at 180 degrees. So connecting the points, we're going to be left with something of this nature. So this is your graph of y is equal to negative cos 2x. And for your homework, please do these questions for me. Number 1, y is equal to 2 cos half x. And number 2, you do y is equal to 1/2 sine 3x.